let's get started. So thank you guys so much for joining today. This is a workshop called How to Zine. And today, hopefully, I'll be introducing you guys to the world of zine making. My name is Fatma. I'm 19, I write, I do art, I make zines, which comes in handy because I'm hosting a workshop today. And I'm also the founder and editor-in-chief of an online magazine that some of you might have heard of. It's called Unutha, and we exclusively publish the work of Middle Eastern and North African women. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Welcome, and hopefully the next 35 minutes are going to be fun. Okay, so today's objectives are, so first we're going to answer the age-old question, the question that all of you are probably wondering, which is, what the heck is a zine? We're going to look at examples of zines made from creatives around the world, and I'm also going to show you guys a couple zines that I've made. We're going to get into the specifics of zine making, so coming up with the idea first, planning it, and then finally the execution. And by the end of it, inshallah, all of you will be inspired to make your own zines if you haven't made one already. Okay, so the age-old question, what the heck is a zine? So for those of you who don't know, or I guess it's pretty obvious that the word zine is derived from the word magazine, but it's different from magazines in that it's more independent and it's more grassroots. So it's very detached from kind of like the big sort of corporate like associations of magazines. And it tends to also be kind of non-commercial. Yeah, so independent of a large-scale publisher, non-commercial, and also follows a do-it-yourself philosophy or ethos. To kind of like, I thought it would be really important for all of us to kind of also learn about the history of zines today, because they have been utilized by individuals since the early 1900s, just to kind of emphasize that this is kind of a form of art that is really important. So right in this day and age, we have Stan Twitter, but in the 1930s, to kind of, for people to express their like love and devotion to their, I don't know, favorite band or favorite interest, they would make fanzines. And the first fanzines can be traced back to the 1930s, and it was led by sci-fi enthusiasts. They also broadened to kind of touch upon music interests, so there was a prominent rise in punk music zines. When I was doing research for today's workshop, I noticed that a lot of the like zine history was very Western focused, which tends to be like trend in almost all of history, or at least history that you find online. But I did find evidence or like this website that shared information that self-publishing tools, or the do-it-yourself ideology that is shown in zine making, was also used in non-Western nations. An example would be the Chinese democracy wall movement of 1978. So from all of this, we can kind of see that zines are used to express people's personal interests. They're used to lead social movements, to form communities, which I think makes them really, really important. So why does zine making matter? As we've discussed earlier, yeah, they enable people to form communities. They allow you to express your interests, but just to kind of use these bullet points, they can be cheap to make and distribute. And I think this matters a lot because a lot of like large scale magazines can, I guess, like ostracize people from people in like lower income brackets or lower economic, like social income brackets. So this makes them super accessible to everyone. It challenges the mainstream world of media, which is led by profit-driven conglomerates. Again, do-it-yourself ethos. So you don't need anyone's permission to make a zine. You get to decide what your zine is about, when you want to make it, how you want it to look like, which I think is really, really important for young people, but also in general for all marginalized or underrepresented individuals. Okay, that was a mouthful. I couldn't focus for a couple minutes, but now we're gonna hopefully get into like the fun part. So for a few minutes, I'm going to discuss my zines. I have a few of them with me right now, so these are a few of my zines, but I'm also just going to show them on the screen here. So I started making zines about 2 years ago, and the first one that I made is this one called Iowa Zine. I went to a writing program in the United States 2 years ago, and it was like one of the coolest experiences of my life. So I wanted to commemorate that and like immortalize that and keep something that would like, I don't know, always remind me of those 2 weeks. So I decided to make a zine, and I basically typed out every single thing that I wrote while I was there and then made it into a zine. I like did some really intense analyses of my zine, but we don't have to get into that. I'll just get into like the obvious stuff. So from what you can notice is that I've made use of both digital and also like IRL tools to make my zine. So the cover, that's right here. The cover is made up of like all of these objects or like parts of objects that I've collected while I was there. But the inside of it is all just kind of typed out. As you can see, it's falling apart too, which is great. And then the following year, I made this zine. This is called Fatma's Journey to Recovery. And it's just about an eating disorder that I had a couple years ago. Once again, it was an experience that I wanted to remember. I wanted to shed light on it. I wanted to, I don't know, make something beautiful out of something that was kind of terrible, if that makes sense. So yes. And then I made this one last summer, and it's called Summers in Singapore, and this is what it looks like. Once again, I have both of them here. Yeah, and this was just about my like summer vacation and how I felt. But from these two, Summers in Singapore and also Fatma's Journey to Recovery, you can notice that I've pretty much used the same like techniques in both of them. So both of them are digitally like illustrated, and both of them like make use of a like specific color palette, as opposed to like Iowa Zine, which isn't very strict, and it's just like a collection of work. Also, if you read both of these zines, you'll notice that it tells one continuous story all throughout, but this one is a collection of work. So it just shows, what I'm trying to like show here is that there's a lot of flexibility in terms of how you can showcase your work when you're making a zine. And also, you don't necessarily have to include text. It could be totally illustration driven. It could also be like a series of collages. You can really decide what you want to do and how you want to express. Yeah, I analyze things even more, but we don't have to get into that. Okay, now we're going to get into the process of zine making, at least my process. I think like everyone's process artistically differs, but you might learn a thing or two, maybe, just from hearing what my process looks like. So the first step is what I call the eureka moment, which is essentially the moment that you come up with your idea. I don't know, for me, usually I don't like sit down and like get super intense and like be like, okay, I need to come up with a zine idea. It usually just comes randomly, and then I go ahead with it. And I think that's usually when like you get your best ideas, when they're very intuitive and they're not forced. So yeah, if you like, yeah, you don't have to like sit down and like force yourself to come up with a zine idea. It'll usually come to you naturally. But before that, I wanted to give you guys like a glimpse of some zines that I have here, but also that I found online, just to once again emphasize like the breadth of what zine making is. So I'll show you a few that I have. My zine collection, unfortunately, is not very big or not very wide. And I can't like go out and buy zines because we're all stuck at home. But I'll show you two that I have. The first one is this one, and it's called Slowly Losing You. I bought both of these, by the way, at a like publication festival that was made by Sharjah Art Foundation last November, if I'm not wrong. So there are like, so if they, I don't know if they'll have one this year, but that's one place that you can buy zines. Yeah, so this one is Slowly Losing You, and it's about memories. I picked it up just because I thought it was really pretty and the illustrations were stunning, as you can see. Yeah. So yeah, this one is very illustration based. So if you're someone who's an artist or you're someone who uses art to express themselves, this could be one form of zine making for you. This one is a little different from what the zines that I've shown you, in that it's not made by one person, but is a series of like work by contributors from like different places. This is called Ink and Oil, and it is made by this poetry collective in Kuwait called Kuwait Poet Society. Yeah, so if you go through like the content page, it has work by a lot of different people, and that's also something you can choose to do. Okay, I'll show you some that I found online, because I know probably most of you can't like go out and like buy a zine, and ordering online is not safe for everyone. So I wanted to show you guys a website where you can access zines whenever you want. Okay, so this is, the website is called Issue, and you can literally just look up zine. Like I looked up zine and I found a really wide collection, but I found 4 that I want to show you guys. So this is called Zines for Teens, and it's made by like a group from New Zealand, if I'm not wrong. And it just looks like this. It's, once again, it's very like informal. It's not technical. All they did was get like a sheet of A4 paper, write down whatever they want in markers, and then scan it. So that's something that you can do. And yeah, I'll show you another example, which is this one. So this one is made by an artist, and their goal was to do like one zine every single month to kind of inspire them to make more art. So if you want to challenge yourself, you can make a zine. And this is her zine for January. So she used like Arabic typography here. It looks super cool. And it's just 6 pages long, or 5 pages long, sorry. So your zine does not have to be long. I got a message from a friend like a few days ago, and she said that like she tried to make a zine, but it was super exhausting because like it took a lot of effort and a lot of time. But it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. You can like make a really simple tiny zine. Let me find one example. Yeah, I made this in 10 minutes, and it's just like a super small zine. So zines don't have to take so long. On the other hand, this took me like a week to make. So you get to, once again, define how long it takes to make your zine. Okay, so this example, this zine was made to raise awareness about mental health between college students. And this one would be very technical. As you can see, she made use of like things like statistics. She has like infographics. She makes references. So if you have a cause that you really care about and you want to raise awareness, you can also make a zine. And the last zine I'm going to show you is someone made a review of Rina Sawayama's new album. So if you have like a group that you really like, or if you've watched a movie and you want to review it, you can make a zine. Yeah, let's go. Okay, let's go back. Okay, so the next step would be the meticulous plan. So let's say you came up with your zine idea and now you want to bring it to life. So I'm going to show you a few ways that I plan my zines. But before that, these are some questions you can ask yourself. So you can ask whether you want to make your zine alone, whether you want to work with someone else on your zine. If you want to work with other people, you can gather your friends. You can like do a call out on social media and ask like just tell like people in your social circle or people that are following you that you're making a zine about so-and-so, and if they want to participate, they can like email you or whatever. And usually people will retweet your post, and you'll get like a really good amount of feedback. You can think about the size of your zine. So The general size that I've shown you guys is sort of this like A5 size, but once again, it could be super tiny. It could be this size. And I'll talk about this type of zine a bit later. Will you have a specific color palette, kind of like the zines that I showed you? And how will you express your purpose? Will you stick to one medium explicitly, or will you mix and match? Okay. So some common zine formats, like I said, the standard half-page zine, and this is just one page folded in half, just looks like a regular booklet. And then you have something called the 8-page fold zine, and this is actually one piece of paper folded into 8 pages to make one zine. And this one is very popular, so I would definitely recommend doing something like this because it was a lot of fun. But you can also get creatives. There are literally no rules. So you can make a brochure, you can make a leaflet, you can make a flyer, and you can call it a zine. And no one is allowed to say no because there is no definition. But if you're making a sort of standard zine format that is like a half-page zine, what's important to remember is that your total page number is divisible by 4. This is because when you have one piece of paper, you have 4 pages. So it's 1, 2, 3. If you don't do that, you might mess up and get something like this. So I made like a zine for my school last year with a couple of my friends. This is what it looks like. It's called Home. And I had to kind of lie to my deputy headmaster and pretend I could do graphic design so he could say yes to us making a zine. But really, I had no idea, and I had to like learn as I go. And you can tell I have no idea what I'm doing because I made the total page number 58, which is not divisible by 4. So when you go through it, so this is supposed to be the last page, and it's supposed to end like this, but instead you get 2 extra pages so that it adds up to 60, and then it's divisible by 4. This is really not a big deal, but if you're a perfectionist or if you like things being super precise, I would say make sure your total page number is divisible by 4. Anyway, this is a technique that I use called the storyboard when I plan my zines, because I like to pretend I'm a big-time Hollywood director and I'm like planning my next feature film, but I'm only making a zine. Let me show you guys an example. So when I made this zine, which I made on like Monday, I think, even though it's very simple and it's very non-technical, I still decided to make a plan because I didn't want to waste the paper. I wanted to like be environmentally sustainable. So I made a plan. I don't know if you guys would be able to see, but I drew 8 boxes to represent the 8 pages of the zine, and you can see the title page, and then it goes on. Yeah, so that's something that I also have used for my more technical zines. So for Fatma's Journey to Recovery, I like sat down and made a very intense storyboard, and I literally wrote out like all the text because I wanted to make sure that when it comes to the final thing, I'm able to do it very seamlessly. Yeah. Okay. The final step is actually sitting down and making the zine. So yeah, this really isn't like, I can't really teach you like to sit down and make a zine. It really doesn't it's very intuitive once again. But I wanted to share some software that you can use. So if you're interested in making a digital zine, sort of like this one, where I have to sit down and type everything out, or maybe even something like this, which is once again typed out. You can use something called InDesign, and it'll look something like this. Like it'll have that sort of page format, I guess, and it allows you to make like book-like zines, I guess. And you can get a free trial, and I think because of the pandemic, they've made like 3 months free for everyone. Do not quote me, I might be wrong. but that's what I've heard. But typically it's about $22 a month. So it's not the worst thing in the world, but once again, it could be a barrier to some people, which is also completely okay. But you don't necessarily have to utilize digital software. You can, like, once again, sit down, make an 8-page zine. You can grab a stack of A4 sheets and go all out, and you can scan them, and that's it, you've made a zine. Something else you can think about is distribution. So ways you can distribute your zine is you can print out copies and distribute them amongst your friends or social circle. So if you make an 8-page zine, you can just open it up, scan it, and then all the scanned copies, you can just, once again, like cut it up and fold it to make the zine shape once again, and then you can share it with your friends. But you can also post it on social media. You can go on the site that I shared earlier called Issue. I'll have a link at the end, and you can publish it there. It's for free. But if you do want to sell it, you can sell it online as an ebook. Okay, so the time has come for you to sit down and think about what you want your zine to be about. While we were speaking, did anyone like come up with like a zine idea or like, yeah. Okay, so Shayma said, I think I want to make a zine about all the things I love. I think that's beautiful. Little pleasures in life. That's also, I think I would make that. About plants, that's a really good idea. Reasons to recover or my day in quarantine. I've been wanting to make a poetry zine. I would definitely recommend that. I think zines are, especially for like writers or artists, it can be really hard to get your work out there. So if you make your own kind of collection, it could be like a really beautiful and really effective way to share your work. Because I think sometimes it's hard to like, I don't know, like spotlight your work or something. Low-key want to document the little stuff in life before quarantine. A zine about family recipes. I think that's beautiful. At-home journey during quarantine. Maybe make a zine inspired by my favorite band at the moment. Definitely recommend. About cinema, a mix of poetry / art zine. Never thought about making a zine about a movie. Okay, the happiest little thoughts. A zine about childhood because you know how much I'm keen to nostalgia. A zine about BTS, yes. A zine about why felt money to start a YouTube channel. Okay, my favorite things about Cairo, I think that would be beautiful. Weird fantasy-esque dreams, would like to make a zine with a collection of those stories, maybe some doodles to add a visual component. That's also beautiful. Pictures I took, totally recommend that. Childhood pleasures or moments zine would be so nice. Okay, I actually have a zine about my cat. Yes, I would read that. Yeah, I have a few prompts that maybe we can go through together that I made up with my friend. So let me share those with you. Thank you so much for sharing your zine ideas, by the way. I really appreciate it. Okay, it's loading. Okay, so some zine ideas that I came up with my friend Maryam. So the worst movies I've ever seen, songs that I love but everyone else hates, all the things I've stand before, my 5 favorite clothing items and why, everything I have felt in quarantine zine, so similar to this one, everything I've baked / cooked in quarantine because we've seen everyone kind of go crazy on social media and make banana bread. So if you've like suddenly become a chef in quarantine, this is something that you can do. But the reason I'm sharing all of these is because if you want to make a zine revolving around one of these prompts, I was thinking maybe we can do like a joint zine together just from this workshop. So if you answer any of these prompts and you make a zine, or like you make a zine spread, or you make a couple pages, or you make like 50 pages, whatever the amount is, you can send it to contact@inutha.com before July 1st if you want to. This is just kind of, I wanted to like give you guys at least one like space to share your zine. to like incentivize you or to encourage you. But if you create your own or follow your own prompt, you can still email it to us, and we can share or publish it on our platform too. And you can feel free and also share it wherever you want to share it. Okay. We're almost coming to an end, but before we do, I wanted to kind of go through the objectives one more time. Hopefully, by the end of this, we have answered the age-old question, what the heck is a zine? So now you can stop wondering what a zine is. We've looked at examples of zines made by creatives around the world. We got into the specifics of zine making, and hopefully you are now inspired to start or make your own zine. If you haven't, that's also fine. But yes, if you want to reach me, if you want to be friends, if you want to send me hate, please go and do that on @WhatTheFatma. I'm on Instagram and Twitter, and I'm also going to send you a few links right now. So I'm going to comment a few links in the chat. So a tutorial on how to make an 8-page zine like this, so you can do that yourself, and a tutorial to InDesign, the software that I shared earlier. I really wanted to like sit down and make an 8-page zine with everyone, or to like teach you guys how to use InDesign, but that would have taken too long. But if you want me to make workshops specifically around one or the other or both of them, you can let me know. I don't mind, and hopefully it'll also be helpful. But I'll share these links anyway. Okay, so someone sent a question a while back. Heya and Naomi said, what is the hardest part about making a zine for you? I think sometimes, like, I don't know, I think sometimes I'm worried, like, am I sharing too much? Because I'm very hard at, like, it's very hard for me to, like, recognize what the line between like oversharing and like a normal amount of vulnerability is. Sometimes I like share way too much and say something that is super bleak, and I don't know if I'm making people uncomfortable. So that's kind of hard, because typically my zines tend to be very depressing, and no such thing as oversharing. Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions, maybe technical questions? I can answer those too. Dima says, I tried to make a zine once, but I just hate every attempt I make. I completely like understand how that feels, because I'm the kind of person who like sits down and like writes like 20 articles and like makes 50 pieces of art, but then never shares it with anyone. But I think it's really important for you to like, I think it just stems from a general sense of insecurity, and it has nothing to do with the quality of the work that you make, because more often than not, your work is probably very good, but your own sense of insecurity is holding you back. So I would say if you're honest with your work, if you put time and effort into your work, then you should be proud of it. Yeah, that's what I would say, Dima. Someone asked, I'm so sorry, but I can't pronounce your name. I'm so sorry. They asked, how much should a zine normally cost to sell? It's up to you to decide, but they tend to be, I think, yeah, once again, it's up to you to decide. I think because, you know, usually they're made by people. We don't have a lot of time left, so I'm going to have to say goodbye. But you can decide. Usually you can sell it for about 50 dirhams if you want, 40 dirhams, 20 dirhams. Yeah, I think you should sit down and assess how much time and effort you put into it, and yeah, sell it depending on that. But when we made a zine with Anutha, we sold it for 25 dirhams, even though I wanted to sell it for more. Yeah. Okay, we have less than a minute, so I'm going to say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you, Kadi, for this opportunity. Thank you, everyone, for the really kind words. I want to go back and read everything because I didn't read. Thank you, everyone. This was really fun.